Hello, hello. Okay. No echo in here. Can all of you hear me online now? Better? Okay, good. I will hopefully, yes, hopefully this will work. Okay, so I'll just go over it briefly. What is dementia and what is not dementia? A lot of the times I hear memory problems, but dementia is a lot more than that. It is a progressive brain disease. At least two parts of the brain are dying. It affects thinking, language, behavior, daily tasks. It even um, impacts motor skills, and it impacts somebody's ability to retain information. And it's not a normal part of aging. So not everybody gets dementia. There's over 100 kinds of dementia and is even childhood dementias. But the symptoms can mimic other conditions like depression and infections. And in the older population, we see things that look like dementia come on suddenly. So, like a UTI can have symptoms that look like a dementia, but dementias typically come on gradually. A stroke can look like a dementia, low blood sugar, high blood sugar, extreme dehydration, things like that can look like dementia. So if anybody has a sudden change, even a person with dementia that has a sudden change, a medical checkup should be the priority to make sure that it's not something else. So, what's the difference? Dementia is irreversible, okay? It is progressive, it's only going in one direction. It causes loss of daily activity skills, changes brain activity and brain structure and size. By the end of the disease, the brain can shrink to 1/3 of its original size. And if that's happening, that means the chemicals in the brain, the signals the brain is sending and receiving and interpreting, those things are not working right. It results in symptoms that appear gradually. And then, like I mentioned, the delirium or pseudodementia, those can be reversed with treatment. Those are your infections. Also, medication interactions, especially if somebody starts taking something new, interacting with something they're already taking, mental health disorders, and those result suddenly, those symptoms. So, there's different types of dementia. And why is that important? So, like I mentioned before, if I ask what is dementia, people say most of the time will say Alzheimer's, or they think Alzheimer's is something separate of dementia. But Alzheimer's is a type of dementia. That is the one that people mostly relate to memory problems. But the truth is, it's more than memory problems. It's the loss of retaining information and keeping it there. It's getting lost in time and space. People can start time traveling in their mind. It is the loss of impulse control, the loss of executive function. So starting a task, doing that task in the proper order, and finishing it and moving on. And then there's a few others. So frontal lobe dementia. That's what Bruce Willis has, the actor. And that one does not present with memory problems. That one presents with behavior or personality, actually personality changes or language difficulties. So it can be either or both. So the personality changes, the person can become really apathetic and not care about anything. And that's not how they are. Or they can become lose a lot of their inhibitions and become really inappropriate and say a lot of profanity or sex talk in front of people, and that's not who they are. Or the language difficulties is the difficulty of processing what we're telling them, comprehending it, and also the speech production. So apraxia. So what they say, sounds are coming out, but it doesn't make sense. Lewy body dementia. Lewy body dementia does not present with memory problems. That one typically has movement issues or also fall risks, high fall risks, or hallucinations, auditory or visual hallucinations. Vascular dementia, that one can have some sudden shifts because those are mini strokes. So while somebody's having a stroke, they might have diminished ability to do things. And then as the stroke alleviates, they might kind of go back to how they were and be able to do more, but it is progressive and it will worsen. And then Parkinson's is also a type of dementia. Sometimes you could see Lewy body and dementia together. And Parkinson's is not memory problems. Parkinson's starts with tremors. So what we're going to talk about today, we're going to talk about the five senses. We're going to talk about other brain changes. And then we're going to talk about some evaluation tools out there that you may not have heard of. So vision. Vision is processed in the back of your brain in the occipital lobe. In normal aging, we are going to lose 20% of our peripheral vision. So if you want to do this with me and you hold your hands out and wiggle your fingers, you should be able to notice the movement. But if you do this, after 75, you're not going to have that ability to see that peripheral vision out here on the side. That's part of normal aging, though. Now, this doesn't account for cataracts or glaucoma or anything like that. That's just the brain's ability to process vision. So in the early stage of dementia, somebody may have what's called scuba vision or tunnel vision. You have a high stress situation, you might have experienced tunnel vision yourself. So if you take your hands and put them like a scuba diving mask in front of you, and I want you to notice, without turning your head, try to look to your sides and try to see the room around you, and then remove that scuba mask and see how that room opens up. So somebody in early stage dementia, where they might not have a diagnosis yet, might have this scuba vision. Binocular vision is typically early mid-stage. So if you make O's with your hands and put them in front of your eyes, you can go ahead and do that. I want you to see the things that are in front of you and maybe the people around the room. Okay, that's the limitation of their vision. So if you approach somebody with dementia on the side, what kind of reaction do you think you'll get? Yeah, scared, they'll startle. Later on, they get something called object recognition difficulties. That means that they might pick something up like a pen, and on a good day, they'll know how to use a pen. And they'll be very curious on a not so good day, and they might stick it in a cup of water and try to drink from it because they made a mistake and they think it's a straw. Much later in the disease, it's monocular vision, so it's the loss of depth perception, and then at the very end, it's a lot of limited vision. Okay, hearing and speech. So in normal aging, we might have auditory, hearing loss, right? But our hearing does a lot more than that. If somebody calls us on the phone, we're using our sense of hearing to process the voice of that person and recognize who it is. When we get older in normal aging, we might pick up the phone, and if it's somebody that we haven't talked to in a long time or someone that's just an acquaintance, we might not be able to match that voice with a person. Or we might have a lot on our mind and we pick up the phone and we say, "Oh, yes, I'm sorry, it's I know who you are. Your name starts with an S. You were in my class the other day." Right? That's normal aging. Normal. What is not normal aging is in dementia, let me back up a little bit. The temporal lobes is where you process hearing, right? And you have the left temporal lobe and the right temporal lobe, and they work very differently in your brain. On the left, in most dementias, is lost first. On the right, in most dementias, is retained for a really long time. So what does that mean? On the left, what people lose is vocabulary and nouns, especially nouns. So you're going to find people with dementia losing their words, and then they're going to ask you, I need the thing from the place. The thing, I need the thing from the place. And you're like, I don't know, right? Because they're losing nouns. Comprehension, so their ability to understand the words that we are speaking to them. Um, Now the thing is you can go up to somebody with dementia, maybe more like mid-stage, but you can say, okay, we're gonna wash our hands and then we're gonna go eat. And they say, okay. And then you go to do what you just said and find out it's not okay because they didn't get all the words that you were saying. And then speech production. So the actual ability to get put the sentence together and get the words out of their mouth. So that is lost in most dementias first. What is retained in most dementias, unfortunately, is one of them is foul language. That includes bad words, sex talk, and racial slurs. That is retained. So somebody who never said a bad word in their life, all of a sudden might start using profanity. But if you think about it, if you walk around barefoot and you stub your toe really, really hard, what's the first word you say? Well, you don't have dementia, you might not say the word, but you at least think it, right? So it kind of makes sense because that's not something you process, that's something that's automatic. Social chit chat. So social chit chat is, hi, how are you? Oh, I'm good. How are you? Oh, I'm fine. You look nice today. Well, thank you. So do you. And then you walk away and you say, oh, they're fine. They don't have dementia. And I actually had a call today from somebody whose family did not believe that their mom had dementia. Well, they don't spend a lot of time with her. They spend the short amount of time, and it's always just superficial chit chat. The daughter that is with the mom that takes care of her is the one that really sees the profound changes. And so her family is not believing her right now. Rhythm of speech and intonation of voice. So the intonation, when you ask a question, are you okay? You know how your voice goes up at the end, and your rhythm of speech. They are paying attention to that. So while they're not getting all the words you're saying, they are listening. So when you said, okay, we're going to wash our hands and then we're going to go eat, they said, okay, but it wasn't okay. But they were just responding because of how you sounded. They also retain poetry, music, poetry, prayer, proverbs, rhythm, also counting. So someone that may have lost ability to have lost some of their words may still sing their favorite song perfectly. And then something called automatic autonomic movement. So what is that? If a fly buzzes by your face, what do? You swat at it, right? So things that require automatic movement, they're going to be really good at. So one of the things is when we greet somebody for a handshake, the likelihood that they will take our hand is pretty good because that's just automatic autonomic movement. So any other tasks and things like that that are automatic, they'll be pretty good at for a while. I do want to mention going back to vision. Vision is the sense that someone with dementia will use the most over all of the five senses. Sensory and motor. So that is really the whole top surface of the brain. Those are the motor skills. Oh, well, let me go. Normal aging. Normal aging first. Normal aging, we slow down. We're just older. Our muscles are more tired. Maybe we have arthritis. Maybe we have injuries from our youth that are affecting us now, but also inside of our body. Maybe as we get older, women become incontinent, men have retention, and things that are happening inside of our body too that are normal parts of aging. In somebody with dementia, they're also still experiencing these normal parts of aging, but they're having a hard time interpreting the sensations inside their body. They might not recognize, I'm hungry, but you're going to see what we call agitation, and we think it's the dementia, but really it's that they have low blood sugar because they forgot to eat and it's been 5 hours and their body is not interpreting how the sensation of the empty stomach. So motor skills will also be affected. Letting go. Sometimes people with dementia like to squeeze and we think they're being aggressive. But what it is if you think of newborn baby, how do they have their hands the first 2 months of life? Like this. And if they get a hold of something, you have to pry their fingers off. That's because letting go is a skill. They can become sensory seekers or avoiders. It's a little bit later on in the disease. Strong hand-eye reflex, that's that automatic autonomic movement. They can have difficulties with spatial awareness. So a lot of that does have to do with the vision changes and the autonomic movement, like we said before. Taste and smell. So as we age, we do have differences. Our taste buds change throughout our whole entire lives. When we're young, we don't like a lot of the foods that we eat now as adults. Kids don't like things that are bitter or bland. They like things that are sweet. And kind of when we get older, that kind of happens to us a little bit. Sometimes things like olfactory hallucinations are when you smell things that aren't there. So sometimes a virus can cause that. So I had COVID back in 2020, and I still get olfactory hallucinations of cigarette smoke. I mean, I could be standing here right now and suddenly smell cigarette smoke. So sometimes those things are caused by other things that are not dementia, but sometimes the person with dementia is not going to be able to notice smells. So smells like urine, feces, body odor, you might come and visit them and they haven't showered in a few days and there's clearly an odor and they think everything's fine. They don't smell it or they don't recognize the smell. It can be dangerous because they might find spoiled food or chemicals that this bottle of floor cleaner sure looks like the bottle of juice that I like. And they won't recognize with the smell and the taste that it's not their favorite juice. Or smoke. If there's a fire, they might not recognize what that is. So because of this, they might result in significant weight loss. And smells may trigger emotional responses, which can also be normal. It depends on the emotional response, right? But for us, we have emotional responses too. If, some of us like the smell of fresh cut grass or the rain or cookies baking in the oven and it takes us back and we have an emotional response to them. Someone with dementia might have a little bit stronger or might be confused about what it is they're smelling. So now we're going to move on to other parts of the brain, the hippocampus. The hippocampus is what allows us to learn and to remember what we learned. So in normal aging, as we get older, our abilities don't change, but we may need a little bit more help. We might be able to be really sharp when we're younger and pick things up right away, and now we got to take notes. But we didn't have to do that when we were young. We got to do it now. It also helps us with wayfinding. That means from getting from point A to point B. A person with dementia may have difficulties getting from point A to point B. And it helps us understand the passage of time. So not only is it getting from point A to point B, but if they think they're younger than they are because they are time traveling in their mind and they think they're 30 years younger, but the house they're living in, they've only lived there for 20 years, they're picturing that house from 30 years ago and they're getting lost in their own home. Or Kmart changed over to Walmart years ago, but now that memory that it was Kmart and changed to Walmart is gone. And since they have lost the passage of time, on top of that, they think it's Kmart. What do you mean Walmart? It's Kmart. I just shopped there. So that can happen with somebody with dementia, not normal. The amygdala. So the amygdala, we have the limbic system. The limbic system is the first thing to develop in the middle of our brain. It is the part that controls things we don't think about. Our blinking, our breathing, our digestion, our blood pressure, whatever you don't think about that keeps us alive, that's in the limbic system. Attached to it is the hippocampus, and then also attached to it is the amygdala. The amygdala is the fight, flight, fright, and freeze reactions that are there to protect us. So this is one of the first things to develop, and it helps process our feelings from our experiences. So, and we'll go into it in the next one, but we'll see young people jump straight to that reaction of fight, flight, fright, and freeze, right? And then as we get older, we kind of manage that And then somebody with dementia is going to lose that ability, and their brain is going to jump to those reactions. And also, our feelings are stored in our nervous system, right? They may lose memories of what happened, but this stuff that's stored in their nervous system is still there. So, and for example, for you, you might have experienced a traumatic experience as a child, but you forgot what happened, but your nervous system hasn't. And when you go through something when you're an adult that's triggering, you're going to have a response to that. So even somebody with dementia who's losing their memories, they can still be triggered with emotional responses. So the prefrontal cortex right here, last thing to develop in a human brain after the mid-20s. This part helps manage the fight, flight, fright, and freeze. So my teenager, when I tell him I'm turning the internet off because I've asked you to empty the dishwasher 3 times, is gonna overreact and be really dramatic. Well, he doesn't have this front part of his brain fully developed. So for him, that is normal. But things can happen to us that are aging normally that cause us to jump to our amygdala. For instance, stress or anxiety. Things like that can cause us, or any kind of stress can cause us to not be able to adequately use our prefrontal cortex to help manage the amygdala. A person with dementia, what that means for them is that they are going to lose impulsivity. They are not going to be able to pause and say, maybe I shouldn't do this. They're just going to do it. They're going to have impaired logic and reasoning. They're going to have executive function problems. So that's, like I mentioned before, starting a task, doing that task in order, moving on to something else. They're going to have difficulties thinking things through and deciding between options or thinking of consequences. They're going to have a lack of self-awareness. They're not going to know they have dementia. Maybe very early on the disease, they're going to know something's off. But as the disease progresses, they don't think anything's wrong. And then the inability to see things from another person's point of view. They're not going to see it from your perspective because they just can't. So think about a teenager or a person in their young 20s. They also lack a lot of those abilities. So now we're going to talk about evaluation tools you might be able to use to, if you're thinking, does my loved one have dementia? I'm not sure. And you may not have heard of these evaluation tools. The thing about the ones you do at the doctor is they don't really take into account what is the person's education level or IQ or things like that. Because I know if I take that test and they ask me some of those math questions or to count back from 100 by sevens, I will walk out with a cognitive decline diagnosis. I can't do that. But see, these evaluation tools I'm going to talk about are a little different. But with all evaluations, whether it is that one at the doctor, whether it's an MRI or a PET scan, any of them, you need to start with a baseline. You need a baseline test to determine if over time that there are changes to their abilities, their knowledge, their skills, and if there's any changes in personality. So the first one I'm going to talk about is animal fluency. The good thing about some of these is that they can be played like a game. Because I know when my mom had to do the cognitive test for the first time in the doctor's office, she was mad. She did not like that. And she doesn't have dementia, but she still didn't like it. Animal fluency, you can play it like a game with other people. And what it is you set a timer for 1 minute. Then you have the person name as many animals as they can in that minute. And you're going to track it. Somebody's going to track it. Different breeds, so different animals, but also different breeds of species count. So if it's a dog and you say husky, poodle, Rottweiler, those count. If they repeat an animal, you put an X. 0 for non-animals. And then a spiral if they totally digress and start telling you a story. Really, what you're measuring is the their ability to access this information and be able to um, give you that information. And you want to repeat this after a few months to a year to see if you see any changes. Now, this sounds really simple, right? Like, really, how does that work? Your brain actually has to do a lot of work to come up with names of animals. So, listen to me and see if you notice what's happening to me when I name animals. Cow, chicken, horse, pig, dog, cat, goldfish, zebra, giraffe, lion. What did you notice as I was naming animals? Did you notice something? I had to go through categories because I could name a few and then my brain started going blank. So then I moved to another category. Okay, pets. And I named those. And then I go to another category and zoo. So your brain is actually doing a lot of work to access this information. Trail making. So there's two parts to this trail making. One of them is connecting 25 numbered dots without lifting the pen. And the other part is connecting 25 alphanumeric dots in order. So for the first one, you want to set a timer and record the time. And you stop the test either when they are through. And if they make a mistake, you don't correct them, okay? You just let them, if they do it wrong, you just let it go. And if they say, I'm done, they're done. You also stop the timer if they lift the pen in test A, because you want to be able to see what their motor skills are too. Or if you've reached 5 minutes and they haven't completed it, you can end the test. Take note of fine motor ability. How do they hold a pen? Do they know how to use it? Are their lines straight or are they drawing squiggly? So there's a lot of things, not just the cognitive being able to do this in order, but the motor skills as well. And then like, again, you want the baseline, and then every about 6 months to a year, you want to repeat this. And also, again, you can make this a game with other people so they don't feel like you're testing them for anything. Now, this last one is what this is, the National Task Group for Early Detection and Screening for Dementia. What they are is a task group for people with dementia that have intellectual disabilities. So not all of this will pertain to you, but I like to show this because they have a really good way to monitor changes in a person over time. So here it's just basic questions. If the person doesn't have IDD, you're not going to answer the questions if they have Down syndrome or intellectual disability. But in this next part, you're going to see that they have a whatever it is they're evaluating on one side, and then they have these boxes that say it's always been that way. It's always been that way, but it's gotten worse. Nope, this is new in the last year, or this doesn't apply because they're okay with it. So, for example, under activities of daily living, they need help with getting dressed. So you can mark where they're at. Nope, doesn't apply because they're fine getting dressed still. But then in a year, when you do the evaluation again, new symptom within the last year. And let me see what else. Excessive or wakes up frequently at night. Same thing. Maybe this has always been the case with them. Maybe they've been an insomniac. So you put always been the case. That's just how they've always been. But over time, that may have get worse. And so the next time you take the test and you notice changes, then you would check always, but worse. And it has a lot of categories here. So you'll see it has the activities of daily living, language and communication, the sleep-wake cycle patterns, ambulation. Then it goes into memory, behavior, and other changes, maybe in their gait and how they walk, and their personality, and their attentiveness. So even though this was made to evaluate people with intellectual disabilities, because they can also get dementia, this tool is actually really great for just about anybody to monitor. Start with the baseline, and then every 6 months to a year, fill that out again and see if there's any changes. And all of these evaluation tools, they are not going to give you a diagnosis, but you take these tools and you get these results from these evaluations and you take them to the doctor and you say, look, this is what's happening. These are the changes. These, are the things that seem to be getting worse. They were able to do this a year ago. They are not able to do this now. So I think I talked really fast. So this is my contact information. Again, I'm a dementia resource specialist and educator. Jamie Harwell is my coworker. She is also one. And that's our QR code if you wanted to go to our website. But we don't have to end it here. If you have questions for me, well, now we have plenty of time. Man, I must have talked really fast. I hope I didn't talk too fast. So does anybody have questions online or here?
Could you speak up just a little bit?
I can reflect too, so yeah.
So after learning more about the subject, I gather, so let's say you're, married couple and you notice that other person displaces things.
Mm-hmm.
They walk in the room with a pen and they set it down, or a pair of socks, or, it could be anything.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll see, oh, where is it? You picked it up. I know I set it here, and you're like, oh no, it's not. I didn't touch it. I don't,
So some of that can be, so you're saying if somebody that your loved one, they're leaving things around, they're misplacing things, and then they're blaming you for moving it or taking it? Or are they sometimes?
I have a tendency to now just say, well, why don't you start from the beginning and go back where you were?
Yeah.
Were you in the kitchen? Were you in the bedroom?
So some of this can be normal aging things, because I am sure we have all said, let me go get a pen. And then you go walk into that room and then you say, what did I come in here for? Right? And I have ADHD. Do you know how many times my husband helps me find my phone and my glasses a day? So it could be normal. What may not be normal is if they think somebody's coming in and taking things.
Okay.
Stealing things. If they start accusing you of moving things, that's not normal. That means that they're having blanks in their memory and their brain is making things up to fill in the blanks. So
necessarily stress, because for a long time I've thought, seeing those kinds of issues, this was something that I even saw in my mother this way, and I just thought that was just some stress over time.
Well, yeah, think about it. How well organized are you if you are under pressure and stress? How well are you to keep up with things when you are extremely stressed? Probably not very good. So yes, so that's one of those things that can look like a dementia, but isn't. It's the stress, right? That the stress is impacting your brain, and your ability to do things. So yeah, I mean, in some ways it can be normal aging, happens to us. Walk in a room. Oh my gosh, well, let me give you this example. You're going somewhere really important and you put your keys down and then you go do other stuff. And then when you go to leave, where did I put my keys? And you try to retrace your steps, but now you're running late to where you wanted to go. So now that stresses you out more. Is that going to make it harder to find your keys, or is it going to be okay? Might make it a little harder to find your keys because now you're stressed out looking for your keys. And if somebody comes up to talk to you On top of that, you might not be very nice to them. Yeah, yes,
I have two questions.
okay.
First one, will our participants can they have access to these slides after the show, or shall they email you?
So they can email me, or it's probably best if I email Kristen.
Okay,
If she has them registered on there, she can email it to them. For those of you here, you didn't have to register for this, did you? No? We can figure out, I mean, if anything, actually on my card, if you, it does have my email address. It has my email address. So if you really want the slides, you can email me directly and I can send it to you.
I think that would be the most direct.
Okay, that's fine because it's on the slides here. So if anyone wants to email me directly, that's perfectly okay. I'm happy to send you the slides.
Another question is, should you tell someone that they've already told you something half an hour ago, or that they talked about a subject just 5 minutes before? Should you let them know if they're encountering someone who's not remembering things? Should you say, we did talk about that 5 minutes ago? We just talked about that half an hour ago.
So it depends on where they're at. Are they having a good day? Are they early in the disease? Because you might be able to tell them something like that and they can be like, oh, okay. Now they might still ask you again because their hippocampus is not holding on to that information. It's just not staying in there. It's gone. The moment you say it to them, even when they acknowledge it, it's not there anymore. So you can say that to them depending on their reaction. So if you say it to them and they react poorly, they get angry, they accuse somebody of gossiping about them, they call you a liar and say, I didn't say that. Do you really want to say it to them then? So, it depends on the individual because everybody's different. One person with dementia is one person with dementia. So, a lot of things, depend on their personality and where they are in the disease process. So for some people, it might be okay to tell them that. For some people, if they don't have a good reaction to it, maybe you shouldn't. Any other questions? Yes.
Yeah, Alzheimer's in the family.
Mm-hmm.
You had people approach you about getting the test to see if their predisposition, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
is higher, or if they can find out if they're gonna have it later. Do you counsel people on that?
I don't personally counsel, but there are different variations of Alzheimer's disease, and some can be genetic. Typically, you need to have the genes from both sides to have that predisposition to, if you have it from both sides, you are going to get it. If you have it, one of the genes, you may or may not get it, but you will pass it on. And then some Alzheimer's, people don't know why that person has Alzheimer's, because there's so many reasons and they're not even sure because in a family, somebody can get it and, for the next 3 generations, nobody got Alzheimer's. So you can do a test if there is a genetic predisposition. If there is a lot of occurrences of it in your family, maybe you do want to get a test because it's good to know ahead of time to start planning ahead of time. I was a case manager before, so when I was trying to help people out, a lot of people would not accept the help and say, no, we're not there yet. You're going to be there because it's a progressive disease. You want to plan ahead when you're not in crisis, not wait until you're in crisis and then try to figure out what you're going to do. So it's up to you. I mean, if it's something that you see a lot in your family, you might want to get the genetic testing and but it's not necessarily an indicator that not all dementias are caused. Usually the genetic one is early onset, in your 50s or things like that. Mm-hmm. Okay, you had a question?
Well, I was gonna ask, what is the exam that you cleared into us? Say, I'd like to have this test done, what is it called?
I don't know because I'm not a doctor, so I don't know those specifics for, but if you think you might have a predisposition, you talk to your primary care physician, I'm sure they'll know what test it is you need. They're going to be testing for proteins in the brain. But if it's, and that's if you, that is to indicate if you have Alzheimer's or not. But if you want to know if you might have Alzheimer's, you don't have any of the signs, but you're worried later on you will. That's a genetic testing. That's a different thing. Yeah.
I have two more questions.
Okay.
So just something that I thought, and I don't know if it's unusual. I have been at times driving somewhere and not usually like locally, let's say like driving out of state.
Mm-hmm.
And to be honest, I'll be thinking about things. And all of a sudden I think, oh my God, where am I? Where am I going?
Mm-hmm.
For like 10 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll remember and I'll be like, oh my gosh, what does that mean? What is wrong?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I mean, what is that
So
stress?
sometimes so if you're really concerned that it might be a dementia, you want to talk to somebody, but we dissociate. Have you ever, even if it's in a familiar place, have you ever started driving from work and got home and you're like, I don't even remember driving home, but I'm here. You dissociate, and it happens to a lot of people, you know. You might even like you missed your turn and you go there all the time. Well, because you were deep in your thoughts and you were dissociating. So that can be normal. Yeah.
It's kind of a scary thought, it is.
Yeah.
And then the second question, do you know what is like, what would be the most current, I guess, ways that Alzheimer's Association treats or helps patients? I've heard a lot of things about different types of medicines and, you start Googling it, of course you go down that rabbit hole and you you find a bazillion things and then YouTube follows you with every possible thing, drink this, eat that, and
Yes.
you're like, oh,
So again, I'm not a doctor. However, there's no real proof of these things out there. People are getting these infusions multiple times a week, or there's medications out there. There's no real proof that it may be working, but they don't really have evidence. It's kind of, let's see how this goes. Also, because the brain chemistry is changing and we give people medication, what's medication? Chemicals. And those chemicals interact with chemicals in the brain. Well, if the brain is changing and the chemicals are changing, how well is that medication going to help? Medications are mostly given to for symptoms. Let's say anxiety. They're going to give them anxiety medication, the symptoms. It's not for the dementia. And those medications may work at first, and then they might not work later on because of the changes of the brain. Or if it's something like Lewy body dementia, medications can dangerously have an adverse effect, potentially. So you really want to research the type of dementia the person has and medication, because that's, really important. So yeah, I mean, people want to be hopeful. We want to be hopeful that they're going to come up with something, but there's really no hard evidence of these things out there that they say they slow it down. Now, when they talk about eating right and things like that, we also don't have evidence whether that works or not. However, does it hurt to eat right, even when we don't have dementia, to prevent it later? Could that help? That's something we can control, right? We can control what we eat. We can control our activity. There's things we can't control that might be impacting somebody to have dementia later, like pollution. You can't control that. So who knows if your environment is causing it. So the things you can't control, it doesn't hurt to be healthier, eat healthier, be more active, learn a new language, do puzzles, go to new places, things that will, because it's not just physical, you want your mental exercise too, right? To stimulate the brain, to challenge yourself, to always keep creating more neurons in there when you're learning new things. So, you know, either way, we don't know for 100% sure is this gonna help or not, but medication's one thing and living a different lifestyle or a healthier lifestyle is something else. So, yeah. Anything else? Any questions from online? I do have a post test before you go. So we are grant funded, so this is just us gathering information for the grant. And if I did a good job and you got some wrong the first time, you should not get them wrong this time. I'm gonna go ahead and pass them out because it doesn't look like anybody has any more questions. And Alex, gonna post down a link for the one of them. Oh, I didn't, I like yours. And while you're filling that out, I want to thank everybody who attended in person and online. I hope I did not rush through it too much. Should I just take these that were not used? Yeah.
Use the next time.
Yes, thank you. Open.
Yes.
Anyone else? Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, same again, thank you for coming out here. And you have my email address, so we do serve Calling, right? Calling County. I get mixed up. Sometimes I call Denton, Collin, and Collin Denton. That's normal aging, by the way, just so you know. All right,
Very much.
everyone have a great evening.
Right.
And thank you for everyone who joined online.
I don't see any other questions, so we still appreciate you being here. And thank you to Isabel Marie for being here and giving her.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
All right, good night, everyone. I'm going to end our.
Yay. How many did we have online?
12 altogether.
Oh, wonderful. 12, including who was here or no?
No, and then
12,
then we
16. I'm just gonna, because I will forget.